I got to talk about these colleges and universities. People keep dropping into my inbox, my DMs, and they tell me about what's going on in their colleges and universities. There are kids out there, mostly vaccinated. Different universities at different rates, 90%, 95%. Somebody just said Yale has 99% vaccination rate among the students. So they are exquisitely vaccinated. The staff, the faculty, they all have vaccine mandates. This is a vaccinated cohort. But they also live in a world of restrictions. There are many restrictions going on in these universities. One, they have to be tested weekly. Okay? Two, they have to wear masks. And many of these places don't ask them to wear the mask that worked in Bangladesh, the surgical mask. They ask them to wear any mask, including a nice Pokemon cloth mask or any cloth mask. But I heard somebody say they like a Pokemon cloth mask. This is just a couple of the things they're doing. In addition to that, there are bans on large gatherings. There are bans on where they can go. There are restrictions on whether or not they can drink in class. So that's something somebody said. They're in class, in a lecture, and they feel that craving. And Lord knows I know that craving. The craving for that sip of coffee. The coffee, a super addictive substance, and our body just naturally takes sips as we keep our bloodstream caffeine level just where we need it to be. And this person was telling me that you can't do that, of course, because you can't even lower your mask to take a sip. Even though you're vaccinated and everyone in the room is vaccinated, you got to go in the hallway to take your sip. Coffee junkie. No, you got to do that, of course. I have a few thoughts about these policies. One, I think any university that's implementing these policies has to state what is their goal. What is their goal? Is their goal to minimize the number of PCR swabs that come back positive, the number of spit samples that are positive? Is that the goal? Is the goal to keep people well? And what are the stopping conditions of this? When does it end? What percent vaccination do you need? Is 99 not good enough? You need 100%? You need 120%? You're waiting for a booster? How many boosters are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? When will this end? When will it stop? The goal and the stopping rule have to make sense. They have to be tied to each other. And I have yet to see anyone articulate what the goal of this policy is. I believe it is inevitable in the course of the next 5 or 10 years that 100% of vaccinated people eventually become exposed to the virus SARS-CoV-2. It's an endemic virus. So what are you doing by pushing that out past your college years when life is over and it's not as much fun as it was in college? No, I don't get it. I really don't understand. What is the purpose of this? The next thing, even if your goal is to kind of push out when you might be exposed to the virus, if that is the goal, to push that out, why do things that don't work? Why, if the cloth mask didn't work in the Bangladesh study, which is a population essentially with 0% natural immunity and 0% vaccination, and it didn't work there, but the surgical mask did work, why not at least embrace the mask that seemed to be working? Why use the mask that's inferior in that study? But more to the point, what data do you have that any of these masks work in a population with a 99% vaccine rate? The Bangladesh study ain't got nothing to do with what's going on at Yale. It's literally totally different. We would never extrapolate a study like that in cancer medicine from one population that has an entirely different type of cancer to another population, another planet, another country that has a different cancer. We would never do such a thing. It's practically another planet. So that's one thing. The testing weekly. That's also something that's bioplausible. Like it would make sense that testing will catch things early and we can quarantine things off. But it's also possible that it doesn't work, that the test has some error rate, that compliance is low, that people don't abide by the quarantines, and the net result of all of this is just spending a lot of money to the consulting company that's paying your epidemiologist without actually slowing the spread. So I guess I have a twofold problem. One, is the goal merely to delay the inevitable, which I believe is the best possible goal? But if that's the goal, when will they stop the delay of the inevitable? Will they ever remove the restrictions? If so, what are the circumstances? But the next question is, if your goal is to delay this, to push it out when you might come into contact with the virus, I guess my question is the thing you're doing actually accomplishing that? And if the thing you're doing is not in fact accomplishing that, well, why are you doing that? Now, how might you make sense of this? Now, let's imagine that the places that were doing these things were full of super smart people. Wait a second, they are! And super smart people know that these universities could pool their resources and do a cluster randomized control trial, randomizing at the level of the dormitory. One dormitory could get weekly testing, another might not. One dormitory could get masking, and they'd be told to cloth mask when they go in the hallways, the other dormitory not. Or even the university itself, the whole campus could be the unit of randomization. You can think of a clever way to solve this problem. And by solve, I mean just get some answer. Move towards some enlightenment on this issue. Don't just live in ignorance for the rest of your life. I think it's really problematic because these kids, they had a promise, and that promise was you do your part, you get vaccinated, and your life, your youth will be returned to you. But that promise is not being kept. Their youth, their ability to do simple things like take a sip of coffee, is being taken away from them. Now, that's a small thing, but having socialization, getting together, having large gatherings, having parties when you're 20, that is something that means something to a 20-year-old. And I don't think it's the same coin as life, but it's hard to exchange those currencies. It's a very different coin of life. So we have administrators, I think, making policies that might be done to look good to other people. They might be done to signal to donors or parents that we're taking this seriously, but they need to articulate what is the goal of the policy, what do we hope to do, and we'll see if that makes sense. And two, under what conditions will we relax these rules? And if they cannot articulate those two things, I think they've failed at a fundamental intellectual level. And the third thing they need to do is to show that the things they're actually doing actually work towards that goal. And so if cloth masks did not work in Bangladesh in a population with 0% vaccination, as you vaccinate to 99%, you plummet your event rate as low as it goes. What do you think the cloth mask is doing there? It's just a decoration, I suspect. If you're gonna do something, you might have to recommend a real mask that works, like we learned from Bangladesh. But even then, whether it works under these conditions is something that warrants experimentation. You can make everyone spit in a tube every week, but does it actually make the campus safer? Or does it just enrich the consulting company that's selling you that test? So I think this is a deep problem. I have said before that I pity these kids that are going to college right now. They are in the midst of a pandemic that, thank God, has not affected them as badly as it's affected a lot of older people in society. So they have had huge sacrifices to their youth. Their youth has been disrupted, not necessarily to save them, but to save others. That's a huge act of altruism. We need to get off our high horse and thinking that this generation is not altruistic. They have sacrificed like I've never seen a generation sacrifice. But at some point, they have to start asking, what are we sacrificing for? How long do we do this? Is this in perpetuity? And what is the goal now? The vaccine is available. Get the vaccine. And then the university's got to answer these questions. So those are my thoughts. Many universities, I keep hearing about it. People are frustrated. It just don't make a lot of sense. It just don't make a lot of sense. So if you like this video, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, leave a message. Until next time.